Right, today in class we're going to look at solving some equations. You've done solved several equations that are similar to these when we were solving quadratic equations. So as a little reminder, if we had something like x squared equals 9, well, then you could easily solve this equation by taking the square root of both sides, and then x would equal plus and minus 3. Because it is a quadratic equation, you're going to get two solutions. Okay, so similarly, if we have cubic equations or even higher power equations, we can solve them in a similar fashion. So x cubed equals 64. So I can, now this time I'll do cube root instead of square root. So this would be x equals 4. So if you remember, we talked about some kind of common numbers that were perfect cubes, and 64 is one of them. 4 cubed gives you 64. Now, if you don't remember that, then you can always do your factor tree. So 64 is 8 and 8, and then you get 2 and 4. And then these 4s will also break down into 2s. Okay, so again, it's the cube root, so I need 3 of a kind to make a group. So there's one group of 2s. Here's a second group of 2s, and then 2 times 2 would give you 4. Okay, now you might say, well, that example you just showed us is plus and minus 3, so shouldn't it be plus and minus 4? And the answer is no, because it's a cube root. So think about what that means. So if I think that negative 4 might be a solution, then I am saying that negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 is 64, and it is not. It's actually negative 64 because you are multiplying together an odd number of negative signs, so your value is going to be negative. So with this cubic, you're only going to get the one solution, so negative 4 does not work. Okay, number 27. On this one, I would multiply both sides by 2 first. So x to the 5th power is 1024. Okay, so then you can do 5th root. So 5th root, 5th root. What happens here is if you do a factor tree on 1024, it's made up of a whole lot of 2's, and it's actually 10 2's, so it's 2 to the 10th power. Here, since I need a group of 5 things to pull a group out, you've got 10 2's multiplied together, so that actually gives you enough for 2 groups. So if I pull those 2 groups out, that's a 2 times another 2, and then x would equal 4. Now, same thing, this is a 5th root. So since it's odd root, you're only going to have the positive 4, not the negative 4. Okay, number 28, divide by 3, divide by 3. X squared is 36. So square root both sides. And x is going to be equal to plus or minus 6. Again, square root. It's a quadratic, 2 solutions. Okay, number 29. Similar to 28, let's multiply both sides by 4. And that will take out that 1/4. So you get x cubed equals 8. So now cube root and cube root, and x equals 2. Okay, that should be one of those perfect cubes that you know. That 2 cubed is 8. Again, if you don't remember that, do a factor tree on your 8. You will get 3 2's to make a group. Okay, number 30. I'm going to cube root both sides. So this becomes x minus 2 equals the cube root of negative 14. Okay, at first you see that negative under the root sign, and you might think that, oh, I'm going to have an imaginary number. But remember, definition of I is the square root of negative 1, not the cube root of a negative. Okay, so our imaginaries do not apply in this instance. Okay, so well, what can I do with this negative 14? Well, it's going to work out fine because if you think about this, I'll kind of do another example here. If x cubed is negative 8, then I'm going to cube root both sides. Well, that's going to be x equals and negative 2 because negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 is negative 8. Another way you could think of this is you can take out that negative. So if you think of that negative 8 as a negative 1 times 8, and well, can I do the cube root of a negative 1? Yes, it's going to be negative 1. So this could be written as a negative or negative 1 cube root of 8. Well, of course, that's a 2. So times 2, and then there's that negative 2. So that is another way to think about it. Okay, so it's okay that we have the cube root of a negative 14. That's not going to really cause us any issue. So what we can do to kind of clean it up a little bit is we can bring that negative out. So if I want to move my 2 over to the right side, I can also do that. So this would be x equals 2. And then if I do the cube root of that negative, it's going to be a negative 1 or minus the cube root of 14. Okay, now you'll notice in the directions on this section, I said you could round to 3 decimal places. So far our answers have been positive integers. So that's been kind of nice. And they've been numbers that we're pretty familiar with. But this one is not going to come out as a nice integer. So you can use your calculator on this. And if you have your graphing calculator app, I'll show you how that works. So you want to use your math button. It's right under the green alpha button. Okay. Oh, let me minimize. There we go. So now you can see it. Okay, so right under the green alpha button is your math button. Okay, and if you go there, you will notice that number 4 is a cube root. So you've got a little cube root here that you can use. So if I want to do this one, I can go 2 minus, now I'm going to go use my math button, get the cube root, and I can say 14, enter. And that gives me negative 0.410. So that would be 3 decimal places. Okay, also notice if you go to your math button, you have number 5 is an X root. So you can use any root you want, 4th root, 5th root, 6th root, you can do any of those. So if you kind of go back up to number 27, and notice we were doing the 5th root of 1024, and I didn't take time to do my factor tree, and I just told you, hey, it's a whole bunch of 2's. Well, you can use your calculator to do that 5th root. So how you would do that is, since it's a 5th root, I want to choose my root first. So I'm going to say 5, and now go to your math button, use number 5, and you'll see how it uses that number as your root. And then I could go 1024 and enter, and you get 4. Okay, so that is how you use that. Again, it's under your math button right there under that green alpha button. Okay, let's see. We have one more here with number 31. So this one, you can see it's to the 4th power. So we're going to want to do the 4th root of 16. So that 4th power cancels out that root. and I get x plus 5 equals, now 4 through to 16. Again, I can do a factor tree, or if you want to use your calculator, you can use your calculator. So it's 4. I'm going to go to the math, oops, wrong button. Go to math. I'm going to get my root button and 16, and that is 2. Okay, now this is an even polynomial, so it's going to act the same as a quadratic does. So you're going to want plus and minus. Excuse me. So plus and minus 2. Okay, now we also, because of the plus and minus 2, you're going to have two different equations to solve. So you're going to have x plus 5 equals 2, and then you're going to have x plus 5 equals negative 2. Okay, so subtract 5 from both sides. X is negative 3, and then same thing here, and x is negative 7. So there are your two solutions. So the main thing you need to remember, really, these equations are going to act like all the other equations that we've solved using the square roots. Then the only other real thing you need to remember is if it's an odd root, you're only going to get one solution. But if it's an even root, do your plus and minus, so you have the possibility of two solutions there.